Hello, my name is Paola Frech, and for my sales technique video project, I will discuss the importance of nonverbal communication. Before we begin with the presentation, it is important to discuss what is nonverbal communication. So, according to the Business Dictionary, nonverbal communication is the behavior and elements of speech aside from the words themselves that transmit meaning. Nonverbal communication includes pitch, speed, tone and volume of voice, gestures and facial expressions, body posture, stance, proximity to the listener, eye movements and contact, and dress and appearance. Now we are going to discuss the different types of nonverbal communications. First comes the handshake. A handshake is an important form of nonverbal communication used frequently in the business world. It is usually the first contact made between two people. If it is conducted correctly, you develop a good first impression. A handshake is not always appropriate. So, usually, a handshake is a good first impression, but there are some times where the handshake is not always appropriate to use. So, when is a handshake appropriate to use? A handshake is appropriate when you're meeting someone for the first time. For example, if you go to a job interview and you meet your interviewer for the first time, it is appropriate to greet him with a handshake. It is also appropriate when you meet someone that you have not seen for a long time. For example, your brother when he comes from college and he has been gone for 6 months. It is also appropriate when you congratulate another person. For example, if it's their birthday or if they win an award. You should also use a handshake when you're saying goodbye to someone that you may not see in a long time. For example, your parents, when you go off to college and you're not going to see them for a long time. You should always prepare for a handshake. To prepare for a handshake, you should make sure that your hand is comfortable for the other person to shake. If your hands are cold or clammy, you should hold a napkin or rub them together to warm them up. If you have something on your right hand, you should be sure to change the items of place so that you can execute a good handshake. A handshake should always be made with the right hand. You should determine if the person that you anticipate shaking hands with is able to perform a handshake. For example, if the person's hands or arm is handicapped, it may be impossible for them to shake hands. So you should think of a way that you should greet them before saying hi to them. These are some tips for a good handshake. To make a good handshake, you should always make eye contact with the person that you intend shaking hands with. You should always smile and extend your right hand confidently. As you extend your right hand, you should look to the other person's hand and firmly grasp their hand so that the web between your thumb and forefinger are touching the other person's web. You should always maintain eye contact. Lean slightly forward and shake their hand 2 or 3 times at most, no more than that. After the second or third shake, you should release your grasp of the other person's hands and place your hand at your side. The second type of nonverbal communication is posture. So, posture when standing. It is important that when you're standing, you should look confident. You should always appear confident in a comfortable way, especially if you're going to be standing for a long time. These are some tips for a good posture when you're standing. You should avoid locking your knees. You should shift your weight from leg to the other so that your legs do not tire. When you're speaking to another person, you should lean towards him or her to show interest. You should always avoid crossing your arms. This shows lack of interest. And you should avoid leaning against or an object. This also shows lack of interest. So, the appropriate posture while you're standing is that you should stand tall and back straight, with your chest out, your shoulders pulled back, and arms on your side. When sitting, it is also important to maintain a good posture. When other people are around, it is important to maintain a good posture because sitting is usually a manner of relaxing. These are some tips for good posture when you're sitting. Do not throw yourself into the chair, instead, sit down with calm. If you throw yourself, this shows desperation and exhaustion. You should rest your back against the chair, but with an upper body position. In a serious environment, you should keep both your feet on the floor. In a chill environment, you may cross your legs if you want to. The posture when you're walking is important when you're in a business meeting. It is important you should maintain the posture that you are using when you're standing. These are some tips of a good posture when you're walking. You should walk with confidence. Your head should be held high and your chin tucked in. You should walk with a purpose and direction. And when you're at work, you should walk faster than you normally would. The third type of nonverbal communication is facial expressions. The use of facial expressions provide powerful signs of the interest level of the person. They also show the understanding of the content of the other person. These are some tips for facial expression. You should always make eye contact when you're communicating with the other person. You should not look at other people's activities that are around you while talking with another person. This shows lack of interest and is disrespectful. You should smile often. And you should practice your facial expressions to make sure that you're sending the message that you want to send to others. Sometimes you make expressions that you don't want to, so it mixes the message that you want to send. The fourth type of nonverbal communication is gestures. So, the use of gestures. Using gestures is an effective way of communicating. Gestures can enhance a conversation by emphasizing certain points. These are some tips when you're using gestures. You should keep your gestures smooth. Vary the gestures that you use. And do not use the same gestures too much because this may cause them to lose their effectiveness. You should also practice your gestures on other people to see how others interpret them. The fifth and final type of nonverbal communication is distance. It is always important to maintain your distance. It is important to keep a little bit of distance when in a business meeting. If people feel that you're invading their personal space, it can cause the other person to feel uncomfortable and become defensive towards you. These are some tips for maintaining your distance. In the US, the appropriate distance between you and the other person is from 3 to 4 feet. This may differ according to the culture. For example, I'm from Nicaragua, and when you greet someone, you usually kiss them on the cheek. If a room is crowded with people, you should adjust your distance accordingly. You should knock before entering another person's office, even if the door is open. This shows signs of respect. When you want to speak to a person and the person is talking or on the phone, you should wait until the person is finished. If you interrupt them, this shows a lack of respect. When you're speaking with someone that is sitting down, you should place yourself somewhere that you can make eye contact. When you're communicating with someone, either if it is verbal or nonverbal, you should always have good manners. Good manners in the business world consists of holding the door for someone can help you communicate good manners to another person. You should always be on time. You should not use your phone. Never use your phone. This shows lack of confidence and is disrespectful to the other person, especially if they're talking. You should avoid eating. You should drink coffee or water if you need to. And you should clean up after yourself. If you drink coffee or water, you should throw the cup away or put them where the dirty dishes are. So this is my presentation, and I hope that you enjoyed my sales technique video project as much as I did. Thank you for watching my video.